Holy God, I want to thank you for your goodness and mercy. I'm going to ask and pray that you would be with us, bless us and guide us. May the lessons we learn in this study be of benefit to us, both now or in the future. In Jesus' name, amen. Before we begin, I can't see the translation button. Oh, wait there. Yeah, I found it. This is going to be complicated. As soon as I put on translation, it's going to come on my audio feed on my iPad. How do I stop that happening?
You need to connect headphones with your iPad.
Okay, give me a second. Sorry, everything was set up to do it the other way around. Mute original order. I'm going to just do a test. I hope you. That's good. I'm really sorry, everybody. It's just part of the technical problems that we have. So just so that everybody knows, I'm just running this meeting on my iPad. And I just have my digital whiteboard. That's all I can see. So despite that, I hope we all have a good time together. Okay, so I have 4 members from South Africa joining me in person. And everyone else is online. So I got a question asked yesterday, which was about demon possession. So I just want to have a short discussion on that subject. Okay, so what was the question?
I wanted to know what is a demon.
So part 1 of the question was, what is a demon?
And the part 2 of the question was, we had a study done in South Africa on forgiveness.
There was a study done a while back on the South African Forum. And the subject was on forgiveness.
The study diverted into abuse and how we treat abusers.
The study drifted a bit, and then it went onto the subject of abusers and how they are viewed or treated.
And one person in our group mentioned that the abuser is usually demon possessed.
And they used the word usually?
They didn't use the word usually. I think it's how I'm explaining it now.
Okay, So as part of that discussion on, it began with forgiveness and it went on to the subject of abuse and abusers. Someone suggested that the reason why these people do abuse is because they're demon possessed.
So now because of what was said, I'm a bit confused as to what is a demon? How do I handle such a situation if I've been abused? Do I pray for the person so that the demon goes away? And do I not continue, with the process of going to the police, reporting it? It just gave me that.
So as soon as you start talking about demons possessing people, it generates a number of questions, which all revolve around how do you deal with abuse cases when someone claims that the reason that they abused was demon possession. Are they cognitive of their actions? Are they responsible for their actions? So it was in two parts. What is a demon? And when it comes to the subject of abuse, is abuse caused by demon possession? So I don't mind anybody commenting or joining in. So let's try and deal with question one. What is a demon? So I'll ask the group here, does anybody want to venture what they think a demon is?
Okay. So demon, according to the Bible, we know that it's Satan's agent or fallen angels.
Okay, so someone here has said that according to the Bible, we know that a demon is a fallen angel. Anyone else here?
Okay, just to add, so even when you look at the examples of one of those demons in the Bible, he was directly taking someone out of the captivity of that power behind, talking about the person's power behind which can be like what Jack is saying, it's a fallen angel. So he was already directly attacking that spirit behind.
So someone else has said, this was Milton, first person was Tato, that we know it's a fallen being or an independent agent because when you see the stories in the New Testament, Jesus is dealing with a third party, not with the human being. Anyone else? Anyone online? So I'm going to leave this for Aileen to supervise or monitor because I don't have visibility. Anybody want to tell me what they think a demon is?
If anyone wants to say something, they can raise their hands and I will allow them to unmute.
My translator just said something. Were they translating me or did they translate what the person said? Because I didn't hear what the person said. Okay, because I can't hear her. Okay.
Aileen, is it possible to have the chat open or not? It's Natalie.
Parminder, do you want the chat to be open or not?
I can't read the chat, so
yeah.
I don't know if it's going to help. If you find it helpful, I'm okay to do it this time, but I can't see it, so.
Okay, there is 2 hands.
I don't have Zoom on my phone.
Yes. There's somebody who wants to say something. I will unmute his.
I'm just going to ask my translator to repeat what's in English. It's easier that way. They can repeat the question to me. It's I've got Portuguese. No one has any thoughts? No one has any thoughts of what a demon is. I find that hard to believe.
Natalie and Molly wants to say something.
It's an evil spirit.
Someone says an evil spirit. Okay, so is an evil spirit an angel, an evil angel?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess the first thing we'd want to do is someone here mentioned that according to the Bible, a demon is a fallen angel. So I guess the first thing is if you go to the King James and you look for demon, what do you find, Rasidi? Sorry? Nothing. You find nothing, she said. So the word demon isn't even in the King James. Milton?
In some translations, the word demon is indicated used with the devil. So you find the devil represent demons in some Bible.
So in the King James, if you go to the verses that you think are talking about demons, what you end up finding is that the word devil is used. So go to Matthew chapter 8, verse 28. It's the one that most people would turn to. I'll read the verse in English, give the translators time to find it. And when he, that's Jesus, was come to the other side into the country of the Gergesenes, there met him 2 possessed with devils coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. And as Milton said, if you go to, not any, but most revised versions, that word devil that's used in that verse ends up getting translated as demon. So when in that discussion, when people were talking about demons, maybe they knew it, or maybe they did it inadvertently, but they were using a term that's not in the King James, but it's in revised Bible versions. So if you just do a simple word search, you go back into the original languages of what that word is. It's the devils in the King James. I hope if you've done that, if you've done it, or you're doing it in real time now, you can see what it actually says, what those words mean. So it talks about in Strong's, exercised by a demon, and that spelling for demon is not our regular one. So the word demon is in Strong's. And if you go in, there's a subword or a root word of that Greek word in Strong's. It says a demon or a supernatural spirit. So a demon can be interchanged with a devil. And if we were to research further, it's not necessarily the devil, that singular person, Lucifer. Someone here said an evil spirit. Or we could call it a fallen angel. So hopefully we've answered that first question of what a demon is. It's what most people understand it to be. Some independent being that's evil, that takes control of the human mind. And sometimes not just the mind, sometimes it's also the, we'll just say the body or the nervous system. Because the mind wants to do something, one thing, and the body ends up doing another thing. There are examples of that happening. Vasily, you had your hand up. Oh, okay. Does that answer that first question?
It gives me information.
Go ahead.
I'm informed, but I don't know if I completely get it.
So she said hasn't answered the question, but she's informed, and she doesn't completely get it. Means understand. And what is it that you don't understand.
I don't know, like, can we, besides the Bible verse that we might have read, maybe can we help by giving another example?
So you want another Bible verse?
Or an example that can help with the definition.
So Mercedes asked for another example. I asked, does that mean another Bible verse? And she said, another example. Would you agree the only safe place to go to is the Bible? So I did check. You could check too. Every time you see that word, it's referring to the same entity or the same dynamic. It's an independent agent that is symbolized by an evil spirit that takes control of a human being. Go ahead.
So with the definition given, does it mean that a human might not be able to control themselves, not to being possessed or controlled by this evil spirit?
The verses don't inform us of how the person became possessed. Possessed means controlled. But the stories that are given indicate that once a person is controlled by a demon, the demon has more power over them than their own will. So they end up losing control, and the demon or the devil ends up taking control. And when you check each story, you get a picture that that control doesn't seem to be absolute. So back to my question to you, what more information do you need to say that you are informed? Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Yeah. So if we're okay, we know what a demon is. The question that's of importance to us is where people misbehave. When people do things wrong, who do we attribute blame to? Or who do we hold responsible? Do we hold the individual responsible, or do we say that some outside agent controlled them and made them do these bad things? Anybody want to comment?
Yes, there is somebody who wants to comment. Just a second.
Someone spoke, but I can't hear it loud enough. Sure.
Okay. So, please, Josephine, unmute. You want to say something?
I was asking, can we please have the chat open? Because I think we would have more people sharing their thoughts, and you could just respond the answers, please.
Sure, I'm fine to have it opened. I didn't say no.
Okay, I will turn it.
Sure.
It's open now.
Okay. Anyone here want to comment? So it's about why people do bad things. What's the root cause? Is it these evil angels taking possession of people, or are they just behaving badly of their own volition?
Two people say both.
If it's both, did you need to translate that first? What you said in English to me. Okay, so if it's both, how do you know who to blame and when to blame them?
So I have a few answers. Somebody said both fallen angel and individuals.
Well, it's not. If they're demon possessed, it's not their actions; it's the demon's actions, isn't it? So I want to go back to Sandra and Natalie. They can put in the chat. They can respond. If it's both, how do you know when it's the demon that's doing it, and how do you know when it's the human that's doing it? Okay, as they're doing that, someone, Kata, want to say something?
Yes, I want to answer. Yeah. So when it comes to, okay, can you please repeat the question?
So my question is, we know what demons are now, and when people do bad things, who is responsible? Is it some demon that's entered that person's brain, or is it the person? Some people have said both, which means sometimes it's the human, sometimes it's the demon. And then someone else commented, well, if it's the demon, then that means the human isn't accountable for their actions.
You have to first yield to the demon.
So my thinking is that a demon is a word that is used maybe to describe a bad behavior or bad or sin, something which is sin. Hence, I would say that since we're putting the word demon out there as fallen angels, we know that they are also angels of God, which we call angels.
I'll stop there. So I don't know if it was a statement or a question, that the word demon is synonymous with bad behavior. That statement. So, go ahead.
Okay.
Then if you associate that bad behavior with an outside intelligent being, which we will call an evil angel, so I'm going to summarize it and I'll ask if this is what Tato is saying. You do evil behavior because evil angels make you do them. Yeah? Is that summary of what you've said so far? Okay.
So I'll add that it's just that we don't use it obviously. But let's say if you do good, we don't usually say it, but can we say that you are an angel possessed or angelically possessed, things like that, because you're doing good?
Okay, so what Tato is suggesting, if I don't think people, you would have heard what he said. Yeah, is to juxtapose two ideas. So we have evil behavior and evil angels. And then he's going to juxtapose that. And I'm sure everybody online didn't hear what he said. Well, what would you juxtapose it with? What did Tato say? Give you a few moments to answer, otherwise Tato will answer for you. Go ahead. What goes on the right-hand side? Because he's doing juxtapositioning.
People say good angels.
No. I just said angel.
People say good angels or good behavior.
No. Okay? Not or, it's and. So the evil behavior corresponds with the good behavior. And good angels corresponds with bad angels. Okay, so what I want us to see is what Tato has done is he has used methodology or some kind of systematic rule to try to answer the question. It's not doing what we think might be the right answer or what our gut feeling would be. Try to apply some rules. Okay, so once you do that, once you juxtapose, or you create one model, which is the one on the left, the evil model, that's what our question is, that's what we're working on. And then what do you do? Either we can do it here or someone online. Anybody, tell me, what are we doing? What is Tato doing once we've got our model? Evil behavior is caused by evil angels. What we're trying to do is answer that model, that question. Go ahead. Okay, so no, I need to answer that one first. I'm going to address that one first. If you have that model, then the demon is not possessing or controlling you. Therefore, it doesn't fit the definition that we're given in scripture. So it can't be a bad person doing what they want and an evil angel joining them. Like a cheerleader. That doesn't meet the definition of possession. Okay, so the next comment. So what we do is we have a model that we're questioning, investigating. And if you're going to use parabolic methodology or juxtapositioning, if anybody can rephrase what Justina said, what do you do? To try to answer the question. This is the unknown. So if that's unknown, how do you answer what the unknown is? Obviously, Tato knows the answer because he's done that. Anyone else? Good, we'll go with those two answers. So you have to get a model that looks similar and yet is completely different. It's different, it is similar, which sounds contradictory, I know. But as Gloria and Catherine have said, the most important criteria is you know the answer. Okay, so either Catherine and Gloria can answer the next ones or someone else can. The answer is already on the board, by the way, of course. What we're now doing is working backwards to see what Tato did. That's what we're doing. Okay, we look at something that's completely different. What's something that's completely different to evil? For the gracious, what's something that's completely different to evil? Good. Okay, so we have to look for something that's good. So that's the first thing we would look for. And then we have to look at a model that is the same. So that was the difference, and now the same. Ricidi, what's the thing that's the same that you need to look for? In what we're doing, yes. So Ricidi said behavior. So if you go to the left-hand side, we have behavior and angels. And there's a relationship between the two, isn't there? And if there's a relationship, we would call one something and the other something. What's the relationship that we already know on the left-hand side? Go ahead. Okay, no, we can't do what Justina said. That wouldn't be a good approach. Well, Milton's given an answer.
We are not just saying that angels on the website, they forces the movie something.
Okay, so Milton said the angels are forcing the person to do the bidding. I'm going to rephrase what he said, unless someone else has given an answer. No? No one there? Okay, so I'm going to call this the cause. The angels were the cause, and the bad behavior was the effect. So now we're on the other side. We've got good. Good is the opposite of evil. That's something that we have to have something that's completely different model. The good would be what? It would be just what we just did on the left. Louder?
Because on the left-hand side, the angels force.
We're not in the angels yet. We're on the good behavior. The good behavior is the cause. Who said that? Give me their name. Oh, okay. I might say anything.
Seems like on the right could be again, could be
that we're going too far ahead. Milton gave an answer, but it's too far. We have to take steps. The evil behavior is the effect. Okay, so the good behavior has to be the what? Result is the same word as effect. Yep, let's keep the words the same. Okay, so if there's an effect, there has to be a cause. And as we've said here, the cause would have to be good angels. So this is how you develop the model. We now have a model that works. Everything fits. And then we ask ourselves the question, do we know the answer to this one? And this is what Milton was saying a moment ago. There's no point in doing this, what Tato said, unless you already know the answer to the right-hand side. And so the inferences, or the suggestion, if this was done properly, is we know the answer. So we'll call it, we don't want to call them good people. Because that would be on the left-hand side that they're bad people. And I think we've already agreed that these are not bad people on the left, they're victims. So the people on the right, they're not good people. Okay, so we've got good. Does everybody agree with that they're not good people? Anybody got a problem with that? There's no okay, so just in case we're not sure, I'll give you a Bible verse. Okay, we'll do it backwards. Let me see how we do this. No, we'll go to the original. So we're in Psalms 53, verse 3. And what does that say? In simply. To summarize, what does Psalm 53, verse 3 say? Good. So no one does good. There are no good people. So we'll go to, we'll read only one of them. Matthew 19, 17. And Mark 10, 18. So I want us to know that what Jesus, these are both phrases from Jesus. Jesus is quoting Psalm 53. It's not some new teaching. He's just quoting from the Old Testament, and they both say the same thing. So someone says to Jesus, "You're good." And Jesus says, "Why do you call me good?" Because there's only one person that's good, and that's God. But this is the interesting part. And you find it in the Matthew version, not the Mark version. Let me just check that that's correct. You do find it in the Mark version, but you have to go to the next verse. So Matthew 19 says, only God is good. That means everyone's bad. But you can still go to heaven. And how do you do that? How do you get to heaven? You have to keep the commandments. So I don't want to get into a deep Bible study. We don't have time for that. Because some of the logic is convoluted. So I'm going to give the third reference that's important to us. Which is Romans chapter 3, verse 12. And the word convoluted means twisted or complicated. So the logic is not that straightforward. That's why I said it was convoluted, twisted. So Romans 3:12. Speaking about the human condition, they're all gone out of the way. They're altogether become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good. No, not one. Okay, so if we take all of these verses together, what's the summary of all of that? Vasily? We're all evil. Nothing? So what's interesting about this, Milton said, is that when you do anything good, you can't take the glory to yourself. You have to give that glory to God. Okay, so for the people that were really, really paying attention, and you're quick on your feet, you know that I deceived you in Psalms, Matthew, and Romans. Because in Psalms, who is not good? I'm sorry. The fool. They're the ones that are not good. We'll go with that one. The reason why this becomes complicated is because in the Gospels, Matthew and Mark, when Jesus says you're not good, who's he referring to? It is everybody, contextually. And it's that one that throws us out. Because if you go to Romans and you just check the context, you'll see that it's talking about, we'll call them the unrighteous or the unconverted. And Paul will develop the model that Jesus has created for us. Okay, so this is why I said it's rather convoluted and it's not straightforward. But that still doesn't stop us coming to a conclusion or an answer to this. So, all these good deeds that we're doing, this good behavior, the effect, so we'll call that good behavior. Do we do good behavior because good angels possess us? Is that why people do good? So I put good angels. And someone said no. Anybody going to say yes? Or do we already know the answer? Who was that? Okay, I don't know what that. Who was that? Natasha. Let's go back to Lynn. Lynn, how can you say we don't know? You can say we don't know, but that's what you say. We don't know. Okay, so Lynn, have you learned? And if you have, what's the answer? So good angels don't make you do good deeds. That's the question to Lynn. Okay, so Lynn agrees with Natalie. And is there anyone else has this idea that that says good angels control us and they make us do good? Okay, so I'm going to say we're all in consensus, we're all in agreement. With this model that Tato gave us. So on the right-hand side, we know that there are good angels, and we know that the people do good. We also know that we could set a model that looks very similar to the left-hand side. Has the same logic, cause and effect. Good angels make you do good deeds. Now, we've only scratched the surface. And we've already, I'm not saying we've proven it, but we've already got a good intuition that good angels don't make us do good. Is there such a thing as good people? Think as good people? If you're not sure, I think Gloria and Catherine have already answered the question. Is that the long answer? Is that the long form of yes, Catherine? Oh, good. Anyone here? Good people? You're not sure? Say that again. So God and I have different rules. So when I look at a person and I'm going to, the criteria that I will use to define good or bad, they're different criteria to God. That's a question to Lynn. I think everyone here said that, yes, there are good people. So I'll give. Okay, so my question was, is there such a thing as good people? And actually, was that my question? Because I've got good angels and no. I think it was something like, do good angels make us into good people? And the answer was no. So then I think I asked a secondary question, is there such a thing as good people? And people, the members here have said yes. And Linda said, well, they're good in human sight, but they're not good in God's sight. And my question was, are they different? Do we have different rules to define what good is? Yeah. I want to remind us all, Psalms, Matthew, Mark, and Romans are talking about how many groups of people? Two groups. There's the bad people and the good people. The Bible always talks about that. The message of this movement is predicated on this model. What's the everlasting gospel? The everlasting gospel. Not sure? Okay. Well, the examples, the model, the definition that this movement has had. 3-step prophetic testing message that does what? That develops two groups. A bit louder. Okay, I think that's what I said. What the everlasting gospel is. What the gospel is. It's a message that develops two classes of people: the good and the bad. So, if we can just summarize so far, there's a message that comes to which kind of people? Which kind of people? Louder. Bad people. Because everyone's bad. That message is called the gospel. It's called everlasting because it's the same message that just gets recycled over and over again. And this is not new. This is what we've understood for a long time. That testing message, which we call the everlasting gospel, that gets recycled over and over again, is all about relationships. How we treat people. That's the everlasting bit to the whole thing. So angels do a work, good angels do a work in this whole process. But they don't come into the mind of a human and make them do good. You could already see how evil that model would be if it were so. That model is what I would call the model of predestination. You know, that crazy evil version that many, many Christians have held to and still hold to. And if we don't believe that, then we know that good angels cannot be the cause of your good behavior, which is the effect. Now, Tato gave us this. He said, let's use some methodology. We began first by looking where? Where did we begin our investigation, our study? We looked at the word demon and we said, where will we look? Bible. So if you're going to do things in order, you begin in the Bible, and then where'd you go? Where'd you go after the Bible? Anybody? We've gone to the Bible, we've done that. Where'd you go afterwards? You'd go to the spirit of prophecy. So Tato allowed us to skip that phase, so I want to go back to that. The Bible says what? These evil angels are coming to target individual human beings. We haven't studied who they target. But when they target them, they take control of them. And it's the angels that get told off, not the human agent, not the human victim. So we'll use the word demoniacs. When the demoniacs do these evil acts, abusing people, Jesus blames the demons, not the humans. Then we go to the spirit of prophecy. And when you go to the spirit of prophecy, what's the modeling or the examples that Ellen White speaks of? What's the themes that she discusses, that this movement has discussed? Human nature. Good. So the spirit of prophecy doesn't speak about demon possession. In the Conflict of the Ages series, the 5 commentaries on the Bible, she speaks about those biblical examples, those stories. But when it comes to her time period, the management of the church in her dispensation, with all the bad things that are going on in the church, the bad behavior, she doesn't attribute it to bad angels. Do I need to repeat something? Okay, so she doesn't attribute it to evil angels. She attributes it to human nature. And the overarching theme that she is going to give to the church is what? It's one that's been our mantra for years now. Anybody know? The true force of the will. Good. Caught up with me. The true force of the will is the model that Ellen White gives us to solve or to discuss the problem of behavior. I don't want to say never, but it's like 99% that she will speak about human nature and the will as the driving agent to bad behavior. So after you've done that, you've gone to spirit of prophecy, then you go to rules. The one that we used above was juxtapositioning. And in juxtapositioning, what's the answer that we just came up with? We're trying to answer this issue here. What's the answer that we said? Go ahead.
It's going to be the will.
A bit louder.
It's the will.
Okay. Anyone else?
To put behavior to choice.
We're on the left. What's the answer? Why are people doing bad behavior?
Yes. No, but from the examples of given, I'm not sure if that it's a choice or it's just a person.
Okay. So I'm going to summarize what's been said here. Has anybody online said anything? Okay, so what Debbie just said was pretty much what was said here. The Bible says there is such a thing as demon possession. I'm just going to point out, without proving it, that it's rare. The spirit of prophecy doesn't speak about demon possession. It talks about willpower. When you use juxtapositioning, you see that it's also human nature. We might call it the will. That makes you do bad behavior. It's not evil angels possessing you. What we didn't do is go back to the Bible and look at the 99%. Hello? I can just hear you now. Can you hear me now? Yeah, lost the testing. Can you hear me? Okay. Can Gabriella hear me? So I switch. I'm going to switch translators because it's not a problem at my end. Okay, can you hear me? I've switched to German. Okay, we're back together again. So I want to apologize about the translation. It's very difficult for me to keep track in our current format. Okay, so we've gone to the Bible, and I'm saying it's rare that the subject of demon possession does affects human beings. I gave three Bible passages: Psalms, the Gospels, and Romans. And they all speak about good and bad people, two groups. And if you see the development, particularly in the Gospels and in Paul's writings, what makes you good is a personal acceptance of the message, the gospel, we would call it. Which is the same methodology that Ellen White ends up using, which is called the true force of the will. And what we ended up doing was using this rule of juxtapositioning to demonstrate that the Bible and the spirit of prophecy are correct. Because we know it wouldn't make any sense on multiple levels for good angels to make you do good behavior so you could be saved. And that's the reason why the movement has never taken the position and will not take the position that evil angels are causing members in our movement to do bad things. It's not a model that we can or that we should base our ideology upon. Received, does that answer that question? Sorry?
It makes it very clear. I think now I understand the definition way better, but just information.
So Rashidi said it's cleared up several points in her mind. And she's satisfied with the answer to the original questions. About demons and people committing abuse because they're possessed by demons. Why these are not models that we can countenance, that we can uphold or believe in. But instead, people have to take personal responsibility for their actions. So we've spoken about the true force of the will. I think it was Debbie and Natalie that spoke about the lower powers. So I think it was around 2017. In the movement, we began to discuss this lower, higher power model. I'm not saying that's incorrect. But I am saying it's not fit for purpose. What is the latest model that we use? And I can't remember the year. I'm going to say 21. Someone could correct me. What's the latest model we use now? Because higher power, lower power, and the true force of the will are not accurate. Good. So, slow and fast brain. Now, this model isn't perfect. I'm sure if time continues, we will come up with even a different or a newer model than this. But I want us to all to realize that we have moved away from lower, higher power model to the slow, fast brain model. And the reason you need to do that is because I call it the 2017 model, gives you a false impression, a wrong understanding of the true force or the true power of the will. The newer model helps us to get a better understanding of how much force or how much power the will actually has. And depending upon the situation, it can have a lot less power than you might imagine. Never has more. It never has more, but in some situations, it has a lot less than you have been led to believe or taught. And I'm not sure if everybody has understood that change or that development, not change. And the reason why that becomes important, because it means the way we deal with abuse has to be handled very carefully. And not only abuse, but the reaction to abuse. And what is the reaction to abuse? What's the word that we would use when we say you react to abuse? Some recent studies that we've done in the past, the recent past. Self-defense. And self-defense, in and of its, by definition, is abusive. Because you're fighting back in some shape or form. So, as this movement has developed its understanding, the testing message of equality came to us. It was necessary for us to develop our understanding of human nature. The 2017 pre-midnight crime model was not fit for purpose. And whether you realized it or not, whether we understand how God has brought this truth to us, unless you understand the nature of the slow and the fast brain, and then the development of the understanding of our right, our inalienable right to self-defense, we can't come to just decisions in abuse cases. Okay, unless I've got any questions from anybody, I've finished today's study. I want to apologize for the late start and the fact that we had some technical problems and we were only able to limit how we would share this study. But despite that, I hope we have all learned something. I've certainly been benefited by the question and the study. So I'll just leave it to a couple of questions. If there aren't any, then we can close. Any questions here?
Just something that caught my attention when
Something that caught Rasida's attention.
in passing you asked.
1 second.
In passing, you asked who the evil angels target.
I had mentioned in the study, the evil angels target people, and I didn't discuss the hows and wherefore of how that happens.
And in my mind, I started thinking of the statistics and how it shows that men are found to be, abusers compared to women.
So the statistics seem to indicate that men are more abusive than women.
And for angels too.
Go ahead.
And if angels were choosing whom they target,
If angels were actually choosing whom they target,
then it would be some form of discrimination against men.
then if they're choosing men in preference to women, it would be some kind of
Like discrimination, like
be a form of discrimination.
because then the good angels would choose the woman.
And that just doesn't sit right with Receiving.
Yeah, so the whole definition and the whole study just it just brought so much light also as to how we use the terms demon possession also in our daily communication.
So it helped her to understand with a bit more clarity the dynamics of all of this situation. Particularly the way people use the term demon possession in their everyday conversations. Yes, please. So I want to state that I've never said that the slow brain is good. Oh, okay. Read it for me. Sorry. I'm going to struggle to. I can't. I can't remember all of that question. So the question is related to abusers and the slow brain. Natalie ended up by commenting that the slow brain is good. And if that were the case, how could abusers use the slow brain to premeditate evil? So I hope that I've understood the question and phrased it correctly. I'm not saying, I don't think I've ever said that the slow brain is good. I don't think I've ever said that the fast brain is good or bad. What I have tried to put across or to share is that both brains have their independent job function. Sometimes those functions overlap, but the point is that each one works under different rules. Maybe a different way I could phrase that is the accountability, is that we have to be careful about attributing accountability to each part of each of those brains, the fast and the slow. The slow brain is premeditated action. And when you consider crimes, it's that part of a person's actions or brain that need to be considered primarily. But just because someone does something wrong using the fast brain, it doesn't absolve them of responsibility. Even if the degree of crime may be less. And if you're not sure what any of that means, think about the following crime. When you kill somebody, the law recognizes two levels of criminality. One of them is called murder, which is premeditated. And the other one is called what? It's not self-defense. It's called manslaughter. Of course, it's a gendered term, we understand that. But manslaughter is murder, but it's a lower crime. And the simple differentiation is that it's not premeditated. In the same way, if we abuse somebody and we say, I didn't mean to, that may be true. It may have been a fast brain experience, but nevertheless, a crime has been committed. And it needs to be dealt with appropriately. So I'm hoping that answers Natalie's question. We really have run out of time. I don't want to keep people any longer, so I'm going to close now. I want to thank you all for joining us. Let's close with prayer. Holy God, we thank you for your goodness and mercy towards us. We ask and pray that you would bless us, guide us and direct us. Help us to understand our relationship with you, understand the work of the enemy, and have a clearer understanding of our own human nature. Our first work, you have told us, is to understand ourselves. It each of us pray we would do this individually and corporately. Amen.